I came home early 4 days earlier than anyone expected, and the first thing I heard was running water. Not rain on the roof, not a leaking pipe, someone was using my shower. 10 minutes later, I was standing in my own driveway with my hands cuffed behind my back, watching strangers move freely through my cabin, while an HOA board member calmly told the police that I was the intruder. I remember freezing in the doorway at first. My bag slid off my shoulder and hit the floor softly, but my heart was pounding so hard it felt louder than any noise I could make. I hadn't told a single person I was coming back early. The trip was supposed to be longer, but a canceled event and a lucky last-minute flight put me home ahead of schedule. I was actually excited about it. I'd been picturing a quiet night, maybe lighting a fire, sitting alone with the kind of silence you only get in the mountains. That picture shattered the second I realized the sound of running water was coming from inside my bathroom. I stood there for a few seconds trying to convince myself I was wrong. Maybe I left a faucet on. Maybe the pipes were acting up. But deep down I knew. Someone was in my house. I reached for the fireplace poker leaning against the wall. It was cold and heavy in my hand, grounding me just enough to move forward. Every step down the hallway felt slow and deliberate, like my body was moving through syrup. The water shut off just as I nudged the bathroom door open. There, wrapped in one of my towels, was a teenage boy, maybe 16. He was brushing his teeth, humming off-key, completely relaxed, like he belonged there. Our eyes met, and for a split second we both just stared at each other. Then he screamed, dropped the toothbrush, and bolted past me, slipping on the rug before scrambling to his feet and sprinting straight out the back door. I stood there, heart racing, trying to process what I'd just seen. Before I could even form a thought, I heard voices, multiple voices, coming from my kitchen. When I stepped into that room, my stomach dropped. A woman I'd never seen before was standing at my counter, holding my coffee mug like it was hers. A toddler sat on my couch watching cartoons. An older man was snoring in my recliner. And standing right by my fridge, completely at ease, was Karen. Not just a Karen, but the Karen and HOA board member who lived 2 doors down. "Oh," she said casually, looking up at me like I'd just walked into her house unannounced. "You're back early." I couldn't even speak at first. I just stared at her, trying to understand how this scene was real. "You broke into my house," I finally managed. She laughed, actually laughed, and waved her hand dismissively. "No, sweetie, we used your spare key. The one under the frog statue. Everyone in the HOA knows you keep it there." My blood started to boil. "That's not permission to move your entire family into my home." She rolled her eyes like I was the unreasonable one. "Relax, we're just house-sitting. You never officially told anyone you'd be gone." Before I could respond, she pulled out her phone and turned away slightly. I realized what she was doing just as I reached for my own phone. She dialed faster. "You're not supposed to be here," she said into the phone loud enough for me to hear. "I'm calling the police." She actually reported me as an intruder in my own home. By the time the sheriff's deputies arrived, my head was spinning. Flashing lights cut through the dark trees outside, and Karen waved them down like a victim. She pointed at me with trembling fingers, her voice suddenly dramatic and shaky. "He's trespassing," she said. "We're house-sitting for the owner. He broke in and threatened us." I stood on my front steps, forcing myself to stay calm. "I'm the owner. My name is Daniel. This is my cabin. I have ID, mortgage papers, everything inside." The deputies looked from me to the strange collection of people behind Karen. Her husband was sipping a beer on my porch swing. The old man stirred awake in my recliner. The teenage boy peeked out from behind my curtains. The younger deputy stepped closer. "Sir, we just need you to stay calm while we sort this out." "I am calm," I said through clenched teeth. "But she's lying." Karen gasped theatrically. "He barged in on my son in the shower. My father has a heart condition. He was aggressive." Before I could defend myself, the older deputy moved behind me. "For everyone's safety, we're going to place you in temporary detainment until we verify ownership." The cold steel cuffs clicked around my wrists, and something inside me cracked. I was being restrained in my own driveway while strangers occupied my home. Karen smirked as she walked past me, leaning in close enough to whisper, "Maybe next time you'll remember to notify the HOA before disappearing." They put me in the back of the cruiser. Through the window, I watched her teenage son stroll back into my cabin like it was a vacation rental. A few minutes later, the younger deputy returned holding a stack of papers, mortgage statements, tax receipts, utility bills, all with my name on them. "Looks like this is your property," he said. "We'll need to ask them to leave." I expected panic denial something, but Karen didn't flinch. She looked the deputy straight in the eye. "He violates HOA codes. We have authority here." "And the worst part?" The deputies hesitated. She reached into her tote bag and pulled out a manila folder with HOA letterhead. "Section 14, Temporary Absentee Clause," she said smugly. "If a homeowner is away more than 72 hours without notifying the board, the HOA has the right to maintain the property." "That's about lawn care," I snapped, "not moving your family in." Her husband wandered out, chewing on a sandwich he'd made from my fridge. "Great place," he said. "Real cozy." I laughed, bitter and exhausted. "I have security cameras, motion lights. This isn't maintenance. This is trespassing." I marched inside with the deputies following. My cabin looked like a short-term rental. Towels on the floor, dishes in the sink, toys scattered everywhere. This wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a takeover. Then I noticed an envelope on the counter with my name written in crayon. Inside was a drawing and a note. "Thank you for letting us stay in your cabin. Mommy says you're always gone, so she said we could use it. I love your shower." My face burned as I handed it to the deputy. His expression hardened. "That's private," Karen snapped. "It's evidence," I said quietly. The deputies finally told them to pack up and leave. Karen fought it every step of the way, throwing around words like harassment and authority, but 15 minutes later they filed out, dragging coolers and half-cooked meals, her confidence gone. As they drove away, I thought it was over. Then the deputy pulled me aside. "She's filed a complaint against you," he said. "Claims you threatened minors and violated HOA procedures." My stomach sank. She wasn't done. She was going to use the HOA as a weapon. For a week I barely slept. I replayed everything in my head, wondering if I'd handled it wrong, if I should have just let it go, if somehow I'd brought this on myself by not notifying the HOA, by trusting that spare key spot, by assuming basic decency still existed. There was a moment sitting alone in my cabin where I almost gave up, almost decided to sell the place, walk away, and never deal with any of this again. I felt small, tired, and stupid for thinking ownership meant protection. What pulled me back was anger. Not the explosive kind, but the quiet, steady realization that if I backed down, she'd do it again. To me. To someone else. And next time she might win. So I prepared. At the HOA meeting a week later, the room was packed. Karen sat in the front row, clipboard in hand, acting like nothing had happened. When she tried to start the meeting, I stood up. "We're not moving on," I said. "Not until we talk about illegal entry and abuse of authority." I laid everything out. Photos, video, the deputy's statements, the crayon note. One by one, neighbors stood up and shared their own stories. The room shifted. Karen's smile disappeared. By the end of the night, the vote was unanimous. She was removed from the board. She brushed past me on her way out, eyes down, shoulders stiff. I watched her go, not feeling victorious, just relieved. I went home to my cabin that night. No running water, no strangers, just silence. And the lesson was simple: power only works when you let people take it from you.